Hello and welcome to WJTS Inform. As we do every Friday, Mark Messmer is joining us. He is state representative for District 63, which is northern DuBois County, and we were discussing Martin and Davies and Pike.
Yep.
And we appreciate you coming in, Mark. It's always good to kind of catch up on what's happening in legislation and what's happening for next week. Well, I guess we should just kind of recap. I haven't heard a whole lot about what's been happening in the legislature. Doesn't seem like
this week is the transfer week, where the Senate bills came to the House bills went to the Senate, and there was we had, I think, 5 or 6 bills come out of committee that we had scheduled for Thursday. 3 of them we amended, a couple of them got held off till next week. So it's really, at this point, the days are full of meetings with senators talking about your bills, senators that are going to be hearing your bills that want to talk about their bills, bills that you're going to be ushering through that you want to try to try to amend, preparing amendments for bills, getting familiar with the legislation that you're going to be hearing, and spending a lot of time. This is a week where the whole day is spent going from meeting to meeting to meeting. You get to the end of the day and you're exhausted and you wondered what you got done.
Okay.
But I mean, a lot of preparation time, and this week is kind of that. Everybody's getting a lot of communications back and forth from the House to the Senate, and getting things up to speed. Had some pretty good, very successful meetings this week with senators that either they've got bills coming over that I want to amend, or bills that I'm sending over that had discussions on. So it was a productive week, just not one that you see a lot. No bills had final passage this week. 3 had amending. We'll have about 10 more on Monday for amending, and every day that pace of amending and voting will pick up a little bit on the floor.
So I guess for the public, they're probably thinking, well, there hasn't been much done in the Senate or in the House because they didn't have any floor sessions. But there's a lot of, and I don't mean behind closed doors, but there's a lot of behind the scenes work that needs to be done first.
A lot of preparation.
So next week will we start seeing some action on the floor then?
Yep.
Okay.
Next week we'll have 3 bills for final passage on Monday, and then about 10 more for amending on Monday, and every day you'll get another 10 to 15, 20 bills that'll come to the floor ready for working their way through the process. And I guess I did have one of my bills heard in the Senate on Monday, House Bill 1289. It's dealing with the Bennington levy in Davies County and kind of fixing the holes in the statute that don't allow for the county and levy board ever to get a repayment schedule functionally started. So that had a good hearing on Monday. Gonna have an amendment to deal with just a couple of tweaks that the Senate committee members wanted to see to kind of tighten it up a little bit, and then also going to try. It's in the right code section. It meets the germane test along the Patoka River, the Jasper Desk building. It's in a floodway, and it falls in the same section 14 as my levy bill does. Looked like an appropriate vehicle to propose an amendment. We'll see what the Senate thinks about it when they meet again. It would allow, they've done it in Evansville along the Ohio River and in Terre Haute along the Wabash River on similar old industrial sites that they wanted to renovate for residential use, and they're in the floodway. And so to be able to do that, you've got to give them an exemption to to the normal rules for that. So that fits in that House Bill 1289. I got an amendment prepared, to amend language that would allow that building to be developed for some commercial or maybe some residential apartment type use. And since it's not the first time it's been done, we're not dredging new turf. We're just kind of creating there's section 1 is Evansville, section 2 is Terre Haute. This would just be a section 3 that would describe the area between the 2 bridges, basically the industrial property along that area, and allow it to be upgraded. There's always the chance that the Army Corps of Engineers could redefine that as not in the floodway but in the floodplain, and then they wouldn't need this this amended language. But this could potentially help get that building some utilization. So
yeah,
happy with that.
Better use than what it is being now.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't have to just tear it down for because it's got some good historic value there. It'd be nice to be able to use it. So, and then I got a couple of Senate bills that I'm sponsoring. One is Senate Bill 529, and it has 2 components. One, it kind of consolidates all of the they'll call it, they'll have an officer for energy development. There's a kind of a smattering of different energy policy, coal policy, green energy policy, all of the different energy functions that are different folks handling that currently under the Lieutenant Governor's office. We're going to consolidate it all to have an officer of energy development that'll be in charge of really keeping Indiana kind of with a focused energy policy. That's one piece of it. And the other one, which is probably the most important one economically for our areas, it's going to set up what they call the Office of Defense Development. By executive order, they've already got that process started, but for it to be sustaining, we've got to amend some language in the code to set it up permanently. And Dwayne Embry, who's the retired technical director from Crane that retired last August, has been hired to be our state's officer for defense development. An absolute perfect fit. I mean, he did extremely well in guiding Crane from just prior to the last BRAC and to current day to really hone in their mission and really elevate Crane's status in the defense world under his guidance, and then that office will be in charge of what they call technical transfer, of taking patented defense technologies that have commercial applications and help rolling those out into commercialization, and it'll set up some structures to allow the state of Indiana to be an active lead role in that process, and a great development in that. Those are the two pieces that are in Senate Bill 529. So I have a hearing scheduled for that on Tuesday in the Government Reform Committee with Representative Mahan's the chairman of that. He flagged me down before we left on Thursday that we'll be there Tuesday morning for a hearing on that. So very excited about that. And then the final bill I'll be sponsoring on the House side is Senate Bill 521. And that's basically the same language that I had in House Bill 1020. They started moving Senate Bill 521. It's called the New Markets Tax Credit Program, and really focuses economic development by census tract into the you have to be in the lower, I guess the top 20% of the townships census tract areas wouldn't qualify for it, but it pairs up with a federal tax credit program that was started in 2000, and 10 states have adopted it at the state level for tax credits on their corporate income taxes for folks that invest in these either rural undeveloped or urban blighted areas that meet the definitions for the federal program. This pairs it up with the state program and incentivizes investment with venture capital into those areas. It would allow, as the bill structured, it would allow up to $125 million of venture capital investment in those areas till they max out the cap that this bill kind of sets up on the use of the tax credit. And I'm sure in a short time, the folks that are helping us move this legislation through, they said probably in less than a year they would have all of that capital raised and invested in projects in Indiana. There's people out there in the investment world that are just looking for places like this to invest that money, and all the other states that have done this have seen the same type of response. Most of them have done like we've done, put a kind of a low cap in at the start. Actually 10 million of tax credits is where the cap will be, which would then be of that 125 million in the venture capital investment. But most of the states that have done it have said, dang, this worked out better than we did, and either taken a cap off or raise the cap or put another chunk of credit on the table. I think Florida just ended up doing about a $50 million tax credit raise on theirs, and just very, very quick response to the investment dollars that follow those establishment of those programs.
Is this kind of like the enterprise zones from like years ago? I can remember those.
Similar concept. Okay.
Yep. Another bill that I guess House Bill 1.
Oh, Senate Bill 1.
Senate Bill 1.
Yep.
Yeah. With resource officers for schools.
That's probably one of the more interesting bills that I think with the current concern of security in our schools, It passed with pretty wide support in the Senate. I don't know if it had any votes against. But what Senate Bill 1 does, it sets up a grant program, from the state that allows school corporations, and the way it's structured, either a school corporation with over 1,000 kids, it gives them a matching grant. The school puts up half, the state puts up half. To put they call it a resource officer, basically a security officer within the school corporation to allow them to, to really focus on security measures and best procedures and practices to make the schools safe. If your school corporation is under 1,000, it allows two school corporations to join up and apply for the grant together. So in my district, you maybe have Shoals and Lagodi could pair up, or Bar Reeve and North Davies could pair up, and then they could split a resource officer between two schools.
And this is where it's on the House floor.
It
will come up.
It'll be assigned to. I'm assuming Education Committee. I think that's where it came through the Senate side. I don't know if the Speaker has assigned that one to a committee yet, but it'll get assigned to committee probably early next week, and then it'll go through the committee hearing process and hit the floor. But I'm sure that as much interest there is in that area right now, and I think a lot of some of the school corporations are even currently hiring their own resource officers, but this will help supplement that process and allow schools that are interested the assets to do it.
Okay, not that there's a whole lot of time left, but where are some of the bills like the alcohol sales? That just keeps coming up.
That one didn't make it out of the House Public Policy Committee and never even got a hearing in the Senate.
So is it dead?
It's dead for this.
So it's dead for this year. It's gone. Okay. Yep. Is there still talk of a tax break?
There's there is, but until we get the updated revenue forecast in April,
won't do any good.
I know the governor keeps making his pitch, and rightfully so. I mean, I understand why he wants it. But with the current forecast, the original forecast we had in December, we with what we allocated for education spending and what we allocated for increased road funding, and just catching up and really catching up for 4 years of very tight budgets. There really wasn't enough money to build the budget around going in. If there's increased projections on the April 15th forecast, and we can, then we have some additional dollars to play with, then I think everybody's interested and willing to look at what type of tax cuts we can build into the budget. But it was hard to build a budget around that going in. I think the 10% reduction in the income tax rate that he proposed would have taken about $1 billion over the biennium, out of the dollars that there were to allocate, and that would have kind of left us where we were, 2 years ago. So.
All right. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I think that
there's always a lot.
There's always more to cover.
Up.
Yeah, that kind of hits the highlights for this week. There was one other bill that deals with the Westgate Tech Park.
Okay. Yes.
Senate Bill 494 is Senator Hirschman's got a kind of over-encompassing, covers a lot of code sites on different type of tax credits and things that are out there. One of the things that Westgate wanted to have done, I had House Bill 1065 that would have allowed them to share. It's a multi-county tech park. They have a $10 million recapture limit that they can, of the increased tax from that tech park zone. But when they set it up in 2005, they said, okay, Davies County, you can capture 5, and Greene and Martin, you can capture 2.5. Because before that, there was always just single county parks, and they had a $5 million limit. And with a multi-county park, they gave them a $10 million limit, but they limited, which counties could contribute to that. What my House Bill 1065 said was, they get the $10 million cap, and it doesn't really matter which county contributes. Greene County might contribute $500,000, Davies might contribute $8, and then $1.5 million from Martin. It doesn't really matter where the $10 million cap comes from. It's just capped at $10 million as a whole, and they can share that recapture mechanism. Talked to Senator Hirschman on Thursday. He thought it was a great idea. He said, go ahead and amend it into Senate Bill 494 when they hear it in the Ways and Means Committee, and our Ways and Means Committee chairman said if Senator Hirschman's okay with it, I'm okay with it. So looks like we got the green light on that.
So that's just moving forward.
Yep.
Okay. Mark, thank you very much for coming in.
You're very welcome.
As always, we appreciate our guest, District 63 State Representative Mark Messmer of Jasper. Thank you for watching WJTS Inform, local people watching local people.